In this lesson, we'll be covering method overloading. Remember when I stated you cannot have duplicate methods? That is true. However, you can have duplicate named methods with different parameters. This is called overloading. And to show you what I mean, we are going to create a class, and I will just call it overloading. And then we will get rid of this constructor, and we will create a new public static class. This will just be a void, and I'll call it overloaded method. And this one will just take no parameters. And then we'll do system debug, and we'll just debug class with no parameters. So now if I try to copy and paste the overloaded method again, and then save and deploy, I will receive an error. It says method already defined. However, what I can do is I can create another overloaded method with parameters. So if I do integer x, integer y, and then we'll just debug x times y, and then we'll try saving and deploying. And that worked. So let's try a couple more. Okay, so we have overloaded method. We'll do decimal this time. So I'll just take this one and change this to a decimal for x and a decimal of y. And then we'll do one more. This time we'll remove, we won't do a number based one, we'll do a string. So string overloaded string, that's what I'll name it. And we will debug the string. So then if I deploy all of them, after saving, remember to save so that way all your local changes get saved and deployed. And then if I just go to our testing Apex, and then I will put in, we want the overloading class, and then we'll do the overloaded method, call that, and then we'll call the overloaded method with a string. Just name it hello. Then overloaded method. And one of them is an integer. And there's another one. So integer, integer. And then there's an overloaded method with a decimal, so I'll do 2.3 and 3.6. So if I tried doing another overloaded method of we'll do an integer of 2 and then a decimal of 3.6, you would think that this wouldn't work because it's an integer and a decimal, but it actually does work, and I'll show you what I mean by that. And to help show that, I'm going to also add in this class system debug, and then we'll just say decimal, and save and deploy. Okay. So the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create one more, and this time instead of it being a integer. I'm going to make it a string. So I'll run all of these except for the last one. So when we run, everything works and we get the debugs. Because all the parameters are different within this class, we are able to still use this overloaded method. And this is really helpful if there's several different classes that you would like to make, or they just iterate off of each other and you want to call it the same method. You're able to do that, just have different parameters. So as we can see, we have the one for just the debug without parameters. We have the hello for the string. We have the 2 times 3. We have the decimal for 2.3 and 3.6. And then what happens when this 2 is an integer, however, 2 can be in a decimal. So even though there is no integer decimal method, it falls into the decimal method. However, if I were to run the string, there is no overloaded method for string and decimal. And this is how you overload a method. And this can become useful when you have a single method, but there's certain scenarios when you would want to have different parameters than the other one. Then you don't have to create different ones, and Apex will determine which method it should fall into based on the different parameters. And the code block or the executed code within it could be totally different. However, a lot of times I do see them chained together, where let's say that I have this overloaded method with the string parameter, then I want to call this overloaded method with no parameter. I can call that and put that into this overloaded method and then save and deploy. And then I can call the string method. And I can see that I debugged the hello, which I put into the string. And then the one with no parameters, that method with no parameters, then called. And that's how you can chain the same method together as well.